Hello, everyone. So today we're going to do a comparison between the Monarch Control 16 millimeter and the Monarch Control 14 millimeter. So first off, shout out to 11Six24 for sending us both of these paddles so we could do this video. Secondly, let's get down to business here. So first and foremost, you can always use discount code DDOG underscore pickleball at checkout with 11Six24 to save yourself a small percentage while buying your paddles, your apparel, whatever from them that they might sell in the pickleball space. And we do get a nice small kickback that helps us make more videos like these, helps us run the channel, and helps us, do a wide variety of things in the pickleball space. We are a small business, so each and every use of that discount code goes a long way for us. With that being said and getting that out of the way, let's get into this. So first and foremost, I want to start with the 16 millimeter control. So out of the two, this is the one I had the least amount of time with, but I had enough time to really formulate some thoughts and opinions, and I've been working on this video for a little bit now and really wanted to just share that. First off, they're both great paddles for the price of $149.99 MSRP, and that's before discount code. After discount code, that drops it to about $139.99. That's a really good price for a competitive Gen 2 pickleball paddle in today's pickleball space and paddle space in particular. So I did want to share that fact. A little bit about kind of the layup of the paddle. So it is a 4-layered paddle. 3 of the layers are raw Toray T700 carbon fiber, and the top layer is Kevlar. It is a blue Kevlar that looks a lot like this. And yeah, here, I'll show the 14 quick just because there might be a little more usage there. Yeah, see, it's a little brighter. Yep, you can see some of the ball dust there. But yeah, so anyways, these are thermoform paddles. They have foam injection. Mine came in, my 16 millimeter came in at 8.1 ounces, and my 14 millimeter came in at 8.2 ounces, which, on a very interesting side note, this is the first time I've had the 14 millimeter come in weighing heavier than the 16 millimeter. So I actually found that really interesting. I have two 14 millimeters personally because I have my own personal one as well. And that one came in a little lighter, at like just about 8 ounces static weight. So with that being said, they have a total length of 15.82 inches and a width of 8.04 inches, classifying them as a wide body paddle. The grip is 5.75 inches, and their typical swing weight stock would be 109 to 111, which puts them in a decent category. They're light, but they're not the lightest thing out there, but they're definitely not the heaviest thing out there either. So their twist weight is 7.2, and they also come with a free paddle cover. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, let's chat. So first off, if you guys have been watching the pods recently or all that, you know that I've been using the 14 millimeter a lot for mixed doubles. I even tried using it as a full-on main for men's doubles as well for a bit, and kind of geared back more towards mixed. With that being said, recently during some play sessions and testing, I've been trying out the 16 millimeter as well to compare the two, and I'm ready to share my thoughts on both. So the 16 millimeter, personally, for me, was not my most favorite of the two. With that being said, there's a lot of good things about the paddle that I'd like to share, and that it is a reset machine, first and foremost. It is a very forgiving paddle. The Kevlar, I feel like, makes it more plush. Personally, at first, I thought the Kevlar would add more power when trying Kevlar paddles in comparison to carbon fiber paddles, but in this line specifically, I find it's more plush, as I do with a lot of other Kevlar paddles, but in particular, this line of paddles. And I find that it really just makes it a great control paddle. It reminds me a lot of the Mach 2 Forza, the 16 millimeter, the 16 millimeter control Monarch. It reminds me of kind of some other great soft paddles like the Vatic Prism series. It's definitely a control paddle at 16 millimeter. It doesn't have that punch per se that I'm going to get into a little bit that the 14 millimeter has. But it's an interesting paddle. It's a fun one for sure. You know, that's kind of all I really have to say on the 16 on the pros front. On the cons front, I found that it's funny. When I first got these in the mail, had you not put the 14 millimeter on the two, I don't think I could have told the difference. They're like the exact same thickness, basically. In this shot, you can see it a little bit. For those of you that guessed, yes, this is the 14 millimeter on top right here. This is the 16 on the bottom. But if you look closely here, it's really about the same thickness. So believe it or not, though, the small details in pickleball really do matter and they can make a difference in playability. So the 16, kind of some of the cons for me were that it really just didn't wow me in any area. It was a good solid paddle. I could recommend this paddle to a lot of people, that prefer a 16 millimeter control paddle, in a wide body shape with a good handle, big enough for two-handed backhands. But other than that, it really just didn't wow me. I did my typical lead tape setup of doing the lead at the bottom corners and the top for wide body paddles. That's how I've been doing all of my wide bodies, and I find it's the best setup for them personally. But let's get into the 14 here. So the 14 millimeter is actually a sneaky good paddle. A lot of people are not talking about this paddle, and I'm not quite sure why. I do know that, unfortunately, which we'll get to in the end of the video, this paddle might be going away. But with that being said, the 14 millimeter is a great paddle, and here's why. So first of all, same lead setup as the other ones. There's just a little lead on the bottom of this one as opposed to the 16 because this one's a little heavier. But what I find that lower millimeter is adding is a lot more pop and offense at the kitchen line. And in today's pickleball game, I find that you really need that personally if you're trying to play at a high level, at like a 4.5, 5.0 level for amateur, or at a 5.0 plus level, really, in particular, is what I'll reference when saying a high level, maybe even some 4.0, sure. So, with that being said, this provides that pop. It's just as controllable as the 16 I found. It's not as much of a reset monster, but you can still reset fine with it. It's a lot more maneuverable at the kitchen line. I really like how it moves in the hand fights in particular. And it's just overall a great paddle. Again, for a quality price as well. And if you really like that Kevlar facing material and texture, then you're really going to like this paddle. So I know, I believe it's Pickleball Medicine also mentioned that his favorite of these two was the 14 millimeter. And he mentioned a lot of similar reasons that I do agree with as well on it, being that it's just sneaky good. It's they say it's a control paddle, but this thing, in my opinion, is more of like an all-court paddle, or almost leaning a touch kind of Gen 2 power, we'll call it, for a wide body, in that it can really sneak up on some people with a quick punch or a quick, flick or a put away. And so I do enjoy it on that front. I do plan on using it for the time being still. We'll see. Again, as paddle reviewers, we hit a lot of paddles. So our mains change a lot and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a good paddle. The cons are the typical 14 millimeter cons. At times, it can be a little hard to keep the ball down, but if you really learn and play with it and adjust to it over time, that ball is going to sit down more for you. You're going to be able to maneuver it and control it just as much as most of these 16 millimeters you can, assuming it's just a regular 16 millimeter and not a super pillowy one like a 20 millimeter Lux or something like that. But there's a lot of good things that come from that lower millimeter in today's game. And this is also another trend companies are doing, that they're making 14 millimeters paddles more like a 16 millimeter paddle. You're getting the power and the pop now at the lower millimeter. And it's a trend we see with paddles like the Rhombus Ripple that's coming up. It's a trend we see with paddles such as the Spartus Olympus that's coming in, I believe, a 14 millimeter soon as well. I know they have a 16 as well, I believe, already. And some of these other upcoming paddles, like current paddles, that are doing really well at this similar millimeter. So it's really interesting to see. For me personally, it's the 14 millimeter all day compared to the two of these skip the 16 millimeter, in my opinion, unless you want just pure control in a Kevlar paddle, then go that way. I think the 14 millimeter offers some more all court playability, similar to the Monarch all court paddle in this series, while having that Kevlar without having the fiberglass under it if you don't like the fiberglass layer under it. So that's my thoughts on the Monarch Control series. I am sad to see this series going away. I know that David with 11Six24 recently sent out an announcement that this series is no longer going to be continued. I think it was mainly just due to manufacturing costs on the Kevlar and not seeing the sales that they're seeing with their other paddles, like the Jelly Bean and the All Court behind it. So I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. Will you guys go out and give this a try? Are you guys not going to really bother? This is kind of the first paddle in a while that I've reviewed that is being discontinued. So I am curious to see how that kind of the market will react, if it'll spark more interest in it, less interest in it, or will it just fade away over time? All right, guys, that's a review. DDOG out.